We are at 6 o'clock. So I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. Thank you everyone for being here for the April 13th. We're already into April 13th business meeting of the Shelton School Board. We'll start out with the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you'll join me with that. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you very much. So moving on to item 2, which is the adoption of the agenda. Have board members had a chance to look over the agenda?
Yes.
All right. Any discussion, or are we ready to go ahead and make a motion?
I'll move that we approve the agenda for April 13th.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the agenda for April 13th. Any further discussion? All right, hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, agenda is adopted. So moving on to item 3, which is the community comment section of the meeting. I have a short statement that I read at the beginning of every community comment meeting, so I'll go ahead and do that now. So as a part of the regular school board meeting, the board invites community members to make public comments in person and or by phone as conditions allow by calling the phone number and entering the meeting ID number as posted on our website. Our public comment procedure allows each person 3 minutes to speak, and comments will be heard during the 2 community comment periods as listed on the agenda. In accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act, the board is not allowed to discuss items that are not on the agenda. The board may direct the superintendent to follow up on certain items that arise during public comment if appropriate. As with in-person meetings, public comments received in writing or by email will not be read aloud, but will be directed for follow-up where appropriate. Please be mindful of how you present your testimony, as the board will not allow complaints against an individual staff member or student in open session unless that individual has requested an open public hearing. Please state your name before speaking. All right, so Bob, if you could give us a little instruction on how to do public comment in our Zoom format.
All right. I see somebody already has their hand raised. So they figured that part out. The muting is, for a phone call is *6 to mute or *6 to unmute yourself as appropriate. So when we start the chat, oh, sorry, I'm sitting there reading the screen. So when we start the comment period, people with their hands raised will be called at appropriate time. I will start a countdown timer for a 3-minute countdown period, and we'll call upon individuals who have their hand raised.
All right, great. Thank you, Bob. So we do have someone who has their hand raised for public comment. So with the phone number with the last 4 digits of the 9353, if you would like to make public comment, you are welcome to do so by unmuting. Please state your name as you begin. So phone number 9353, last 4 digits. Would you like to make a public comment? If you would like to do so, please unmute by *6.
Okay.
All right, so I'll give you another few seconds to, I know sometimes with technology that can be a little bit challenging, and we definitely want to be able to give you the opportunity for public comment if that's what you desire. So to unmute is *6.
Hello.
There,
Hello.
now we
Hello?
can hear you. Yes, we can hear you. Thank you.
Oh my goodness, I was pressing #6. Oh, goodness gracious. I got to be able to read my own. Thank you so much for your patience. Okay, you got the timer started?
Once you say your name, yep, you're off and running.
Okay. My name is Erica Marbett, and I'm a parent in the Shelton School District. I have 2 kids in high school who went through Evergreen Elementary School, and I'm just calling in today to check in about the multilingual Shelton group, which is a loose-knit group of parents who have been interacting with the school district about dual language and English learners. Wanted to let you know what we've been up to lately. I sent you a couple emails, and I wanted to describe a little bit in person to you guys, or best I can on the phone tonight, what we've been up to. Since late 2020, we have researched what I would call in my profession best professional practices for English learners and dual language, state law, and test scores at Evergreen. And we sent a set of 12 questions to Dr. Apostle and Kelly Neely and Marianne Marshall in early December. And we asked that when we meet with the district that they record the meeting or submit responses to us in writing. And we've had trouble getting that meeting going, but we do have it scheduled for April 19th and at 3 p.m. And thanks to Kelly Neely for getting it on the calendar. However, she won't allow us to record the meeting so that we can share that with other parents and evaluate it. So I'm asking that if any of the folks on the school board, if one of you could join us for that meeting on April 19th at 3 p.m., I would appreciate that. I feel that we have a good set of well-researched questions that are really important to be answered by the school district. So that was one thing to say, as well as we've been doing some informal outreach in the community, and that's taking more time than, with COVID. I know you guys know about that. We have a Facebook page, which I've emailed to you, and we've met at Neyland Park once. Our picture was in the paper a couple weeks ago. So we are looking forward to the dual language task force that is supposed to happen sometime soon within the district. We would like to participate in that, and you've also seen my emails. So that's the update. I look forward to interacting with all of you about dual language and English learners.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Erica, and thank you for being persistent on getting your phone unmuted. We appreciate your comment.
Oh, it was a nightmare. I'm so glad I figured it out.
All right. Is there anyone else who would like to make community comment? All right. So seeing none, we'll go ahead and move on to reports and recognitions. And our first report tonight is item 4.01, which is an update on the new bond rating from the Moody's Rating Service. And we have John Gores here from D.A. Davidson. John, it's nice to see you again. It's been a while.
Nice to see you as well. And I'm joined by my colleague Corey Plager. And one of the advantages as I get older, one, I'm in line for a COVID shot earlier than most people, but also I get the ability to delegate as an elder statesman. And when Moody's Investor Service last summer embarked on this methodology change on how they rate issuers, then Corey was able to take the lead on that, and with help from other people in our firm. And so tonight I really want to have Corey explain to you how the methodology, what the changes have been, what the impact is to the school district and to the borrowers as well. So with that, I'll turn it over to Corey.
Thank you, John. And for those of you that don't know me, I worked for about 15 years at the Educational Service District supporting school districts before I joined John about 3 years ago. So I've been partnering with Brenda, working with continuing disclosure compliance and all that work that comes with your successful passage of the bond a few years ago. But I put together a little presentation with John's help here. I'm going to go ahead and put on the screen. If anybody give me a thumbs up if they see that. Perfect. So we're kind of going through a frustrating experience right now, and that is that Moody's decided now was the time they're going to, during COVID of all times, to analyze how they rate school districts across the United States. So we put together a little presentation because not everybody's probably really familiar with bond ratings. I did notice there was, I think, a new school board member since the last bond sale in 2017. So we put together just about 6 or 7 slides here. We'll try and be really brief, you know how busy you are. But just a quick introduction. Bond ratings are a measure of the credit quality of the issuer, very similar to your personal credit when you're going out to get a mortgage. The issuer's credit will help determine what rate and what investors might be interested in purchasing your school bonds. The rating agency is essentially trying to inform investors. They're not really working for us, they're working for investors and kind of giving you a report card on what they perceive your ability to pay your principal and interest payments are in the future. So how safe of an investment you are. And the safer your investment, usually you can get a little bit of a better borrowing rate. If you're a little bit more risky, a little bit higher borrowing rate. There are three major companies that do this: Moody's, Standard & Poor's, and Fitch. And I put them in order of popularity by how we see school districts use those vendors in Washington State. And Shelton just used the issues Moody's Investor Service. Some districts get two really large districts, but for the most part, a majority of our districts reach out to Moody's. And then districts customarily request the rating when they're issuing new bonds. That happened when the Shelton sold their bonds about 5 years ago, but they keep reviewing us. They call it surveillance. It doesn't sound very healthy, but they surveillance the school districts and analyze if there's going to need any changes. So that's a little bit of a background, but this January, after a period over the summer of taking public comment, they published this updated methodology. They decided that schools need their own rating system. We're not going to be lumped in with cities or sewers or counties or higher education, that we're now getting our own model. And, you know, anytime you're trying to set a model that works for every school district in the United States, some districts are better than others. And the methodology had 4 areas: how economics of the district, the financial fund balance, how the state looks is the government and the factors that are surrounding all school districts in our state, and how much debt is outstanding. And then they also came up with this thing called a notching factor, where there's other considerations that aren't in those 4 formal areas. So that's just a little bit of a high level about why are we talking about this? Well, what changed and why are we here presenting to you? Well, Moody's made several changes that negatively impacted a handful of school districts in Washington State. And for example, fund balance. It used to be fund balance was important, but it was about 1/5 of the rating. Now it's almost 1/3 of the rating. So now if you're a district that doesn't have a robust fund balance, like many school districts in Washington don't have, because we have a very stable, dedicated revenue stream, they were negatively impacted. So now that the model is 30% from 20%, those districts that don't have a robust fund balance didn't fare as well in this ratings methodology. And just for comparison, the national median is at 21.5% fund balance. Imagine going to your public and saying you're not a bank, you're a school district, but you have 21% of your budget in the bank at all times. The second thing that hit Washington State school districts is they determined that our statewide, was a weak financial reporting state, which is a little frustrating from our perspective. Both these things are frustrating, but they said we're not following governmental accounting standards boards when it came to reporting post-employment benefits. So right now, Brenda's required by state law to already report pension liabilities. So what are the liabilities for our teachers and our custodians and our food service workers after they retire? What's our share of that cost? But now they want to know about other employment benefits like healthcare, dental, vision. So it's getting more complicated, and those things are not actually even allowed in our state. We don't have that information without paying for actuarial data or working with the Department of Retirement Systems on top to get that data. They also want us to record depreciation of buildings and facilities, which is not done by school districts customarily in our state. So they put a flag on us saying we're a weak financial reporting state. So those are the 2 things that really are playing against us right now. So what does that look like? This is probably hard to see. I know it depends on if you're on a laptop or a computer, but this is the scorecard that Moody's is now using. And I highlighted each section here. And just keep in mind that Shelton was rated A1 before this all started, right in the top 1 in the A category. And you would like to see those red boxes outlined in that A column if that's what your rating is. But you'll notice there's things on the left and there's things on the right. But the things on the right are 30% of that rating. And you'll notice fund balance, available fund balance ratio, and net cash ratio. Those are the real two biggest things that are dragging down the district, in combination with our state being declined a weak financial reporting state. So I know when we were working with Moody's, we were really trying to share, we didn't agree with us being considered a weak financial reporting state, but there's not a lot we could have done arguing about fund balance because they just set this metrics at this level. So I know it was very frustrating when we were going through the interview process with Moody's. But this indicated outcome said the district should be downgraded by 2 notches to an A3, and that's in blue at the bottom. Thankfully, after an extensive review process and interviews that Brenda answered a million questions from Moody's analysts, she was able to persuade them to only be downgraded to an A2. And who else was impacted? I mean, we look at this, there were 18 districts in the same boat that you were this year. We don't know how many will be in the same boat next year, but 16 were downgraded. So Shelton's definitely not alone when it came to going through this process, unfortunately. Only 2 districts were confirmed, and that's Federal Way and Evergreen. But we saw some of the most successful large districts that have great financial management downgraded. So in addition, they did have 7 small schools upgraded, very small schools that used to be looked at not approvingly because they were small. And now the Moody's kind of took that framework away. But I just want to share that you're not alone in this review process, and you can see all your peers here. So what does an A2 rating look like? We know it's frustrating. It was frustrating for Brenda when they were downgraded, but A2 is still investment grade credit. It is still high credit quality with low credit risk. It just isn't an A1 anymore. It's an A2. So we can see that we're still in that middle of one of those green categories up top. So what are some things to consider? Our state provides a school bond guarantee program, and it's never had to be used, but if for some reason a district can't pay their principal and interest payments, the state would step in, which makes our bonds very safe. So the rating change may have a negligible impact on borrowing rates in the future. So while it is frustrating, it might not impact the next bond. The rating change was not a result of any wrongdoing and should not be considered a negative representation on anything on the leadership team. It was just the result of a universal United States-wide metrics change. There were about 3 or 4 states that were really hit harder, and they were states that were similar to us where we don't have 25, 30% fund balance. We might have 4 to 8% fund balance. And we are still advocating for the school districts, even though this formula changes came out in January and the districts have been getting downgraded over the last few months. We're still advocating on behalf of Washington State school districts because we still think the framework really needs some critical thinking and some feedback on this model and how maybe it shouldn't be applicable United States wide. Maybe there should be something different for Washington because of our extremely safe and higher percentage of funding from the state. I mean, we just had the McCleary lawsuit that shifted a lot of the funding on every taxpayer across the state and is a very secure system. And we don't see that in other states. And that's why those schools have higher fund balances. So why would we punish our school districts when we have a great track record of paying principal and interest, and you have a great track record of your voters paying their taxes and supporting school levies and bonds? So just a few things to consider, but John and I are available if you have any questions, if any frustrations about this rating downgrade that we can answer.
All right, questions or comments from the board?
Just appreciate everybody's work on following through on this. It's certainly not something that I, as a board member, would have had time to follow and to evaluate. So I appreciate your expertise and being on top of this. And
if I can, I would like to just underscore what Corey said, that the district, the leadership team, the school board did nothing wrong that warranted this outcome. It was simply a change to their scorecard, how they go about rating Washington school districts. And we believe that these new metrics are inherently unfair to Washington school districts for what Corey mentioned, that now your funding is secured more by property taxes than it was by sales tax, that property taxes are collected, they're funneled through the county and then to bondholders. There's no way for the school district to interfere with that process. And so unfortunately, our advocating the school district has fallen on deaf ears with Moody's, but that doesn't mean that we won't stop trying, and we will continue to try, because we feel strongly about this, that this is not a reflection on the fiscal management of the school district or anything that you've done. And the good news is you're not borrowing any money right now. So the impact to you is zero from a borrowing perspective. And even if you were borrowing, the credit spreads between an A1 rated district and an A2 rated district, the interest rate spread there is relatively small. And that even is further negated by the fact that we have state guarantee, where the state is in essence a co-signer on all of these transactions, and you get a AAA rating for that. So it's we make it a bigger deal because we're in this every day and we're frustrated with Moody's, but we'll continue to advocate for school districts. But in the meantime, it doesn't have any negative impacts on the district's borrowing abilities. And as Corey mentioned in his opening statement, we do have to remember that Moody's is actually, their title is Moody's Investor Services. They work for the investor. And the investor was demanding these changes on OPEB liabilities and all these various things, and they responded to it. And unfortunately, it's had a negative impact on the school district. But I will also say that Brenda did an amazing job talking to the rating agencies and keeping the district from a 2-notch downgrade. Shoreline School District can't say that. They did get a 2-notch downgrade, and the others have gotten just the 1 notch. So she was really a great spokesperson for the school district, got all their information at a time when we know how busy you are, but she was responsive and did it with a smile. So I appreciate her work.
So did anybody in the state get upgraded?
So as Corey mentioned, there were some upgrades, but
The
what was
small
so ironic is they were small school districts that had very large fund balances as a percentage. Doesn't mean that they were any more or likely to pay their debt than you are. And so those were the ones that were a little bit frustrating to see a Spokane school district get downgraded, but what was some of the ones that a Rainier school district or a LaConner school district get upgraded. So that was the rather frustrating part, where the methodology in our minds just, they try to have one size fits all, and I just don't think it works.
Do all school districts in Washington fall under this Moody's?
There are 142 school districts that have Moody's bond ratings in Washington state. So there's a lot of very small school districts or very infrequent borrowers who simply don't have a Moody's bond rating. Once your bonds mature, then the rating goes away. So not every district has a Moody's rating. And even though there were 18 school districts on this list for downgrades, if we apply their new metrics to school districts in the future, there could be potentially more downgrades because the financial reporting system isn't going to change. The focus on fund balance isn't going to change. Taking less emphasis on the economy and more on wealth levels, that certainly will have impacts on more school districts. So we think in the long term, yeah, there could be potentially more downgrades.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you for the thorough explanation, both of you. And I can hear the frustration. It is definitely frustrating hearing that we've been downgraded. So I do thank you, Brenda, for your advocacy on that part too, to not have that be as far as it was. But thank you both very much for the thorough explanation. That was really good information. I appreciate it.
More than very welcome. Thank you.
Carrie, and great last name.
All right. Well, thank you, John and Corey, very much. Appreciate the information.
welcome. Thank you for what you do. Take care. Good evening.
All right, so moving on to item 4.02, which is attendance and budget update with Brenda.
Okay, I'm going to give an enrollment update. I don't know if is Bob going to do attendance after I'm done? Okay.
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
thanks, Bob. Okay, I'm going to share my screen first here. I actually wasn't sure I was going to be able to get April's numbers due to spring break, but I was able to get some today. So I've updated part of it with April numbers, and it's actually good news what we're seeing so far. You will see here, we received Bordeaux through Oakland Bay today. We don't report till Monday, I believe. So we don't have Shelton High School, Choice, or Cedar in here yet. But as you'll see, Bordeaux is up 4 FTE from March, and then Evergreen's actually up 0.5 FTE. Mountain View is up 4.88 FTE. Olympic Middle School is up 2.38. The only one we have that went down at this point in time is Oakland Bay Junior High, which went down 2.96. So what I did, I plugged in what the other Shelton High School, Choice, their Pathways program, Choice Middle School, and Cedar, I plugged in what they had last month. So if that stays steady or goes up, I'm optimistic, we will be up at least 8.8 FTE from last month. So that's wonderful news for us. So that's where our enrollment is. We will have the rest of that hopefully by the end of the week. So I just want to give you a little budget update. I spent the morning on an ESD business managers meeting listening to Dan Steele from WASA. He's our one that does our weekly updates on the legislature. So it was quite interesting to listen to what all was going on out there. He's optimistic they will end on time on April 25th. He's kind of hearing grumblings of that. So we're keeping our fingers crossed because I'd really like to get moving on this. The F203 that generates our revenue once they get done with the ledge session and they can program it should come out 2 weeks following the end of the session. So we can start plugging in projected enrollment and start getting some numbers and start cranking out budget. Then once that happens, I talked to Alex, we're going to convene our budget advisory committee that will be community members giving us input on budget. We've been doing that the last few years and it's worked well. This week, we are meeting with the elementaries to discuss their next year staffing levels for certificated and classified staff. And then the following week, we'll be meeting with all secondary schools to start working on their staffing. A few things that were interesting today that Dan mentioned, which I don't agree with, but that's just me and not the legislature. So they are looking at reinstating our enrollment to make it whole, but the Senate and the House are on two separate sides of the fence at the moment, which is interesting. The Senate wants to use the ESSER 2 and 3 money to backfill for our declining enrollment instead of giving us state funds for that. They would take us up to $1,500 per student. And then if we still were short, then they would give us state money. The House wants to base it on our 2019-20 enrollment, which would be really good for us because we were very strong, and use state money. So I'm going to be keeping a close eye on that process for that bill. They did solidify what the IPD, the otherwise known cost of living raise, will be for the 2021 school year, and that will be at 2%. And then what Dan said is right now he considers them in a reconciliation phase. They take the remaining bills that are there that have budget impact or budget related bills, and they resolve their differences between the Senate and House in this next 2 week period. So we should be seeing some action happening within the next 2 weeks. So we're gearing up. I was working with payroll today to start building the budget field. So we're getting ready. Hopefully they'll finish on time so we can start moving. Alex, do you have anything to add to that?
You're muted, Alex.
Sorry about that. Can I go ahead, Sally?
Thank you. I just want to mention that we're very fortunate that our community, our students and staff are sticking by us and doing a great job so that we can meet and exceed our projection. I was in a meeting this morning, and I'm not going to mention any school district names, but school districts around us have lost over 1,000 students, and it's not just one. It's quite a few. And so we're in good position. Thank goodness to tremendous support from everybody in our community. So I just thought I would mention that.
All right, thank you. So questions for Brenda? And then Bob's going to do the attendance side of this. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. All right, Bob, I think we're ready for you.
Okay, so just a quick update on attendance as we're heading into the home stretch here of the school year. Overall, as a district, we're sitting at a little over 85% attendance. That's a little bit down from where we normally are. Attendance has been really an interesting animal this year as the methodology for reporting it has changed a couple times since the start of the year, and there were some glitches, I think, at the start of the year with how we were supposed to record some of our attendance. So the good news is that we've remained pretty steady since January, and our kids are hanging in there. Our elementaries up through 6th grade, K through 6, are all up in the mid 90% for attendance, and then at the secondary level, it drops off some between 75 and 85% for OBJ and the high schools. So basically very similar patterns to what we've seen in the past. Overall, the numbers are a little bit lower than where we've been in the past.
All right, thank you, Bob.
You bet.
Questions for Bob? All right, any other comments, Alex? You're muted again.
No, that's fine. Thank you, Sally.
Okay, great.
I did have a question. It just took me a while to hit the unmute. I'm sorry.
No, totally fine.
So there's a 15% basically that are they attending sporadically, or are they moved on to other types of schooling? Are they doing online school somewhere else? This includes the ones that we have doing online school, correct? So what do we know about the other 15%?
So the 85% represents the average daily attendance that we've had throughout the year. So those are the students that are ours, not students that have gone somewhere else. And just like attendance in a normal school year, they don't always show up every day. And again, with some of the challenges we've had this year with how to record the kids who are online and making sure that everybody's going back and getting the correct attendance in, it's been a much bigger challenge, I think, than in a typical year.
Thank you.
All right. So thanks, Bob and Brenda. All right, moving on to item 4.03, which is District Improvement Plan with Robert.
Good evening. Thank you, President Carr and members of the school board. I'm excited to talk to you about my department, or departments as it is now, and my department improvement plan for the remainder of the school year, and which we're almost complete with. And so I thank you for allowing me to go last with everything that's been going on here recently related to COVID, especially, and opening schools. It's been tremendously helpful. As you'll see if in your board packet, many of the things that are outlined in here are things that actually have already been in progress or achieved. These are things that I've been working throughout the year. I've been was able to touch up on some of them and update them accordingly, and then also to expand on a new goal also towards the and item number 4, which I'm really excited to talk about here. First item up is for the objective number 1, which is improve overall academic achievement for students. Item number 1 that I have under that section is to work with administrators and departments and jurisdictional agencies, which we've done throughout the year, to ensure appropriate health and safety standards are planned, implemented, and trained for the purpose of returning students to school. And the part that I added is in keeping them there. And so that's just as important part as we are continuing through the COVID pandemic, is making sure that we're working through everything that we can, whether it's through contact tracing and continuing our screening efforts and improving them as opportunities. We're taking feedback and going through them, to just making sure we can do everything to keep our mission of keeping the students open and expanding them as necessary, as we can do so for our students. The second one is the department to finish the integration of our new system for school, which is called School Dude, which is we're going to use to we already are utilizing that software, but we are further expanding it to include other modules and things to ensure that our integration with Bob and with testing and assessment specifically is handled. We're just about to implement it last year for this process, which was when COVID struck, and we still have not been able to complete that process. But as we finalize the whole testing and assessment for this year with the state and everything that you're all aware of is continuing ongoing, we are working to implement a system where we will pre-inspect all of the assessment testing areas in advance to make sure that everything is proper, the lighting levels are set, and that everything is comfortable and there'll be no distractions, as well as the system is designed to also notify all the teams in maintenance and facilities and the custodians to let them know where testing areas are active and live. So as they arrive to work each day, they're giving notifications to avoid certain areas and to avoid noise in certain areas, just to create the optimum testing environment. So we continue to work with the changes with testing and assessment, and we are happy and looking forward to implementing those changes here as soon as we are ready. The next section, section 2, or objective number 2, is to increase school quality and student success indicators. The first section is that I've outlined for you is to increase safety of staff and students through the remainder of the COVID health emergency, which is through our vaccination efforts. Also implementing technology like our screening systems and other health screenings, and continued outreach. And so this has been something that's been implemented throughout the year, and I'm happy to report that that every district employee has been offered multiple times opportunities to be vaccinated. It's been a very successful program. I'm very grateful for our partnerships, and that's been thoroughly effective, and we continue to do so. And throughout the year, I still am approached every day for more opportunities for vaccinations, and also to help family members who were previously not eligible. And so that's going extremely well. The next section for part number 2 of section 2 is work with departments and administrators towards successful return to in-classroom learning, which we have started to do, of course, with our hybrid model, and more students are returning every day, with a goal of expanding in-person learning enhancement and activities as our guidelines allow. So as things are continuing to evolve, we're looking at more ways that we can expand the opportunities for students to learn, whether that's through more project-based learning, working outside of the classroom, and as in some of the conversations that we had today, could be towards returning towards things like field trips and so forth. And then also because we understand that our part here in facilities and with safety is that we're a support mechanism, and we're here to make sure that the most important aspect of students' personal growth is related to how excited they are to be here, and the things that enhance education. And those are some of the things we're not able to do right at the beginning of returning back to the classroom. So we're looking at all the different ways that we can work towards creating the best quality education environment and getting students more and more excited and engaged. Section number 3, or objective number 3, is to ensure that every staff member is a 21st century educator. So in our department, we're working to support 21st century educators through ongoing review and implementation of technology and our procedures for the purposes of enhancing safety and maximizing outreach to all students, whether in the classroom or through other means as the current conditions allow. And so the last section is objective number 4, which is to promote equity in all aspects of the Shelton School District. And this is something I've given a lot of thought to, and I'm really excited to bring forward. This is going to be a multi-year effort, but we will begin this year in this school year, and that is to begin a framework of the review of facilities and safety through questionnaires to administrators and staff to determine short, medium, and long-term goals to ensure that all students and staff have equitable facilities and assurances of safety, regardless of their race, gender, socioeconomic, and other identifiable population group types. So this will be, so we think facilities generally and safety in a homogeneous standpoint. We're thinking things district-wide, and we're thinking about what's great for all staff and what's great for all students. And sometimes by doing so, sometimes small groups get left behind and they're not thought part of that process. So I want to go in deep and try to identify places where we may have certain segments of our population, whether it's McKinney-Vento students or other places where perhaps we've stuck one group here in a portable and they've been there forever, or they don't have equal access to other parts of facilities or similar facilities. And I think that we need to go through and identify where that's occurring through deep data mining and through talking with all these different groups and stakeholders because we need to make sure that our facilities are equally providing, for a positive and comfortable education environment. So this is just another step to make sure that we have not accidentally forgotten about one specific group, or even if it's a group of 2 or 5 that is consistently left out of the big picture. And that is my complete DIP for this year.
All right. Thank you, Robert. Questions or comments for Robert?
Robert, I just want to say I really appreciate how much work and effort you put into all of this. It's very clear that you care very much about the job that you're doing, and thank you for the thorough plan. Oh.
I can hear you, Carrie.
Oh, okay. I'm getting this message and I wasn't sure if that was directed to me.
No, I apologize for that. That was directed to other people who have trouble finding the unmute button.
Oh, okay.
I apologize for that.
That's all right. Thanks, Bob, for the reminder. But yeah, just thank you very much for the thorough plan. We all know that you've been working, just round the clock, especially during COVID, to make sure that our facilities are what they are, and you support your crew very well, and you support our students and community through that whole process. So I just really wanted to say thank you for the work that you've been doing.
Thank you.
I agree. Alex, it looks like you have a comment.
I do have a comment, and I too agree with Carrie and probably everybody else that Robert's done an outstanding job. Robert and I have discussed the need for a strategic plan, of which what he's just mentioned is an important piece of a comprehensive strategic plan. What we want to see, hopefully, is a 10-year to 15-year strategic plan as it relates to our facilities. We don't want to be caught flat-footed in terms of facility maintenance and upkeep as we go forward. So this is something that Robert and I have discussed, and I know that Robert has this on his radar, but what he's mentioned this evening is also a very important part of that process. So thank you, Robert, for bringing forward something that's very important.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Robert. Appreciate your report. All right, moving on to item 5, which is the consent agenda. Any discussion or questions from the board about this? Not, I would entertain a motion.
I move that we
I-
accept the consent agenda.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded to accept the consent agenda. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, the consent agenda has been accepted. So moving on to discussion and action items. Item 6.01 is the proposed interlocal agreement with the City of Shelton and Mason County regarding the Shelton Skate Park, which I know has been sort of in hold because of COVID. So Brenda, you're going to tell us a little bit more about that.
Yes, thank you, President Carr. Mark Ziegler and I started working on this in February of 2020. And then we know what happened after that. So we kept trying through the pandemic to keep working through it. One of our first obstacles is the city and the school district both use Porter Foster Rorig. So to get a legal person to do that, you have to sign conflict of interest on both sides. So that was a challenge to get that done. So we finally did that. And this new agreement really doesn't change anything. It extends us for 5 years from the date everyone signs. You will see that the Mason County Commissioners have already approved it through their board. We are next, and then it will go before the City Commission after we approve it. So I would like to ask that you approve the new skate park agreement this evening.
And you said, it sort of cut out for a minute. You said 5 years?
5 years from the date the city signs it. It will.
Okay.
Yes.
So 2026.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Other questions or comments?
No questions for me. Just glad that we finally were able to move forward on it. And that it goes 5 years forwards instead of starting from last year and going forward 5 years. So good.
Do we need a motion for this?
We will need a motion for this. Yeah. So if we're done with discussion, then a motion would be great.
Okay. So I move that we accept the interlocal agreement with Shelton Skate Park. Oof. I probably didn't say that right. With the City of Shelton
In Mason County.
and Mason County regarding the skate park operation.
I second that.
It's been moved and seconded to accept the proposed interlocal agreement with the City of Shelton and Mason County. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right. The interlocal agreement is accepted.
Thank you.
All right, item 6.02 is the proposed grant from the Department of Ecology, which involves a surplus of a school bus. So Holly.
Good evening, thank you. I wanted to present the grant that the Shelton School District was awarded for it's called a Dura grant, and it's comes from the Environmental Protection Agency, and we are approved for a $20,000 grant, but we have to surplus one bus, and that means destroying one bus. A 3-inch by 3-inch hole has to be cut in the engine block, and we have to show proof of that before we can be actually awarded that grant. So I'm asking the board to approve the surplus of bus 112 to do that. And then there's stipulations on what bus we have to consider for it. It has to be driven at least 10,000 miles in the last school year and at least 2006 and older, and has to be driven 3 days per week. So several of the buses that we just surplus wouldn't qualify for the grant. So we chose this bus because we can't get parts for it anymore. So asking the board to approve this surplus, please.
All right, questions or discussion about the proposed grant and surplus of the school bus? All right.
Maybe we could run down what the grant is for people that aren't aware.
Sure. It is a diesel emissions grant to help with the improving the quality of air in regards to trying to the diesel emissions, better improving the environment, getting, better exhaust buses out on the road and newer systems running.
So it's still trading a diesel engine just for an upgraded diesel engine.
Correct. Yes.
This is not a move towards a electric bus or.
No, unfortunately, they do have them, but we did not qualify for it, and it would be a huge step for us to start running electric buses.
Yeah, I hear they're like triple the cost. You can
They
buy
are.
3 regular buses, the cost
Yeah.
of an electric bus. So this is staying with diesel, just a more fuel efficient diesel.
Yes, absolutely.
Alrighty.
So is this a bus that would be surplused soon anyway?
Yes, it would have been eventually because we couldn't get any more parts for it.
And it's one of the full-size buses, correct?
It is, and we will replace it with a full-size bus. And we've actually already ordered the new bus. It was a show bus that they already had built and ready to go, and we should be receiving it around May 10th instead of waiting 9 months to receive a bus. And we got a really good deal on it. It's fully loaded compared to just a basic model bus.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So I'll move that we surplus school bus number 112.
I'll second that.
Been moved and seconded to surplus bus 112. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, motion has passed. Thank you, Holly.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right, moving on to item 7, the superintendent's report. So Alex.
Thank you, Sally. Just 3 short comments. First, I hope that everyone had a chance to relax and re-energize during the spring break. That's number 1. Second, we are moving forward with the end of the year celebration and activities such as the high school graduations, of course, moving on ceremonies at each one of our schools. Third, we are also again going to recognize our most inspiring students, K-12, which is a huge event for the Shelton School District. We are truly going to celebrate the end of the 2021 school year, a very deserving celebration for all of us. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. So we've come to that part of the meeting where we can have further community comments. So if there is anyone who would like to make a community comment, I'm seeing that no one has called in at the moment. I will do a brief pause here in case someone is hoping to make further comment and is dialing in. All right. So moving on to item 9, board member comments. So Carrie, you're at the top of my list tonight. Would you like to go first?
Sure, I'll go first. I hope everybody had a nice spring break as well, and that you did get a chance to unplug. And I know the sunshine for me this week has been very nice to see and to get some warmth out of that too. I just want to say that going through the superintendent search process was really educational for me in many different ways. And I'm really thankful that we have not had to do that multiple times in my time here on the board. But I do just really want to thank, all of the groups that attended those meetings with the candidates and gave us their feedback, as well as all of the community comments that came in. I know that, I can speak for myself as a school board member. I read through all of those comments, and people, really put a lot of information in there, and they were very well thought out. So that was very helpful. And it was also just helpful to see the interaction with each group and the questions that they came up with. So, I know that that was kind of an exhausting process, and it took time away from your usual schedules. So thank you very much for doing that. And, I hope that, going forward, that the choice that we made is going to, in fact, be a great fit with Shelton. I think it will be. I'm excited about it. But I am very thankful that this is not a process that we've had to do like some school districts have had to do year after year. And I did want to also just comment that it was really nice to hear from the consulting firm as well as the candidates, just all of the positive things about the Shelton School District and how we're viewed by people from the outside. We had over, I think they said 33 candidates. They said Shelton has really become a destination, place to apply for because of all of the great things that have been built and are going on here. And, there were just a number of things that were mentioned about our community, about the schools, how the schools looked, about our AP, classes and awards that have been given, just a lot of different things were highlighted about the Shelton School District. It wasn't just the athletic fields or the academies, it was a lot of different things. And it was also nice to hear that as a school board, we were looked at as being a board that worked well together, and that we have, stayed fairly intact over many years, which also does help to get things done. You're not always having to start things over. So I did just want to make a couple of those comments of the observations that I made during this whole process. And, just again, say thank you very much to everybody that was involved in all of that. And outside of that, my two daughters are really enjoying being involved in athletics through the school, as well as going to school still the 2 days a week that they're going. All of that continues to just kind of roll on. And I can't believe that we're here in the middle of April already, and talking about graduations and putting those on the calendar. It's like another year is coming up here very quickly. So anyway, that's it for me. Thank you.
Thanks, Carrie. All right, Sandy, why don't you go next? Nope, you're still muted.
Carrie covered a lot of territory there, talking about the superintendent search. Of course, that was a big thing for us to have completed, and now the all of the end of the year things. I'm just super excited tonight because I was able to stay on camera most of the
Uh-oh, we just lost your audio. Well, it went really well there for a moment. We lost your audio for a minute right at the end. Thank you, Sandy. All right, Lynn, you're up.
Thanks. Really, Carrie took the words right out of my mouth. I just think that that process was really rewarding on a lot of levels. Just the community input, our teachers and principals and staff, cabinet, and then again, like hearing all the great things about our school district is really good, especially when it's been such a challenging year, for everyone, to really kind of hear that a lot of districts are looking at Shelton as the district. So well done, everyone who gave us that reputation. And just been spending a lot of time in my role at work watching the legislature. So Brenda, yes, I've heard they are planning to to adjourn sign die on April 25th, and are keeping our fingers crossed that that happens. So that's all I have.
Thank you, Lynn. Sally.
Yes, just all those things that Carrie said about the search, and just the appreciation for so many people in our community that participated, because this is everybody's school. You know, this is the whole community's, and so many students that participated. It was great to hear their perspectives, and see students being really involved and saying, you know, this is our life right now, and this is what we want to see. Just so many very articulate young people were able to give some wonderful input. So just, yeah, spring break is always that time when you go, okay, spring break finally got here, and oh my gosh, spring break's already over, and now we're going downhill here for another year. So, and it's almost, you take a breath and then you have to really crank up for all the end of the year things. So it's also a very exciting time. I too have been following a lot of legislature things, lots of the bills going through, seeing what their priorities are, what has been left by the wayside, but I think they've done a tremendous amount of work in this time and the way that they've had to do it. Just, I'm just hoping upon hope that our community stays and regains their health. I've been very concerned about our uptick, and just, we have to remain vigilant and hopefully get through this and be able to start our new school year in a much better place. But it has taken all of our people, everybody. Brenda does a tremendous amount of work, and Terry and everybody, Robert. It really takes, all of the cabinet, but all of the teachers and the classified and everybody to really pull this off. And just really appreciate everyone and all the work they do every single day, and the flexibility that it's taken during this time. So hoping everybody stays vigilant, and that we can start next year off with the football season and everything else intact.
Thank you, Sally. So I just want to echo what Carrie and other board members have said. A really big thank you to everyone as we went through the superintendent search process, and to the community, because this was not a normal way to have done it. And we appreciate the large amount of participation that occurred as people were joining on Zoom and submitting questions through a Google form and giving us comments through Google Forms. So not the normal way that we would normally do that, but we really appreciate everyone being flexible and willing to participate, even through some of the little challenges that we've had along the way. I wanted to thank some people that were especially helpful and went above and beyond as we went through this process, because there was a lot of planning that was involved. And I know that without the rest of the school board and with quite a few staff, we wouldn't have been able to do this. So I wanted to make sure to publicly thank Brenda. Thank you very much for helping with the tours. You were a great ambassador for our school district. Katie Diamond, who was our right-hand gal for everything. I really appreciate all that Katie did. Robert, thank you very much. As always, you were very helpful and the facilities were beautiful. All of the candidates were just blown away as we, did the tours and drove around. They were just amazed at how clean and beautiful and well-maintained our facilities were. It was quite they said it over and over and over again. So it was quite a compliment to your department. To Joey Stewart at the PAC, he was amazing, and we had some technical difficulties, and he and his crew of kids were fabulous. Grace under pressure. To Mary Johnson and Alex Brown-Smith and Bruce Kipper, thank you very much for allowing us to come onto your campuses. We would have liked to have been able to visit all of the campuses, but with COVID and with time constraints, that wasn't possible. So thank you very much for being willing to allow us to come onto the campuses and see some of our facilities. Allison, thank you very much for all of your help and making sure that our candidates were comfortable and fed. And then to Glenn too, as well, thank you for the technology help. That was very helpful to know that when we were doing those meetings with the candidates at district office, that they were able to easily participate, and which made it easy for all of our staff to be able to ask questions and get to know the candidates. So let's see, the only other thing I had was tonight is board members, I sent you an email earlier about a possible study session for next week. So if you could take a look at that and get back to me, and then also some contract information as well. So if you could get back to me on both of those things at some point here in the next day or two, that would be appreciated. All right, so with that, we do have an executive session tonight. So item 10, we're going to be looking at proposed job description and pay scale for LPM, and also proposed job description and pay scale for Cedar High School planning principal. Terry, about how long do you think that will take?
I should imagine about 15 minutes.
Okay, so we'll plan for about
15 minutes. I think it'll be short.
Okay, perfect. So we'll plan for about 15 minutes. After that, will there be possible action? I'm assuming probably possible action as a result. Okay, see Brenda nodding her head. So after executive session, we'll come out for possible action and adjournment. So thank you very much. So Bob, are we going to set up a breakout room for our executive session? I think that probably would be easiest.
I will be assigning host duties to Brenda, since I believe she's involved in this, and then she can manage the breakout room from there.
All right, thank you.
All right.